Let's look at our next two examples for the greatest common factor and least common multiple. So for C, our pair of numbers are 24 and 30. So let's start by finding their prime factorization, and then we'll use that to make the Venn diagram to find the GCF and LCM. So for 24, I'm going to factor this as 6 times 4. And again, no matter what way you started, as long as you write your factors correctly, your resulting answer is the same. 6 is 2 times 3. They're both prime. And 4 is 2 times 2. So the prime factorization of 24, I'm going to write the factors in increasing order, are 3 factors of 2 and 1 factor of 3. Now let's find the prime factorization of 30. Well, 30 is 6 times 5. 6 is 2 times 3. And 5 is prime. So I'll circle that now. So the prime factorization of 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. So now I'm going to make my Venn diagram. So you're drawing 2 circles that overlap in the middle. The green circle, I'm going to label this 24. We're going to put the factors of 24 in here. And the blue circle is representing the factors of 30. The factors they have in common, we're going to put in the center that's both in both the blue and green circles. So let's get our highlighter. I'm going to start with 24, and I'm going to check to see what factors 24 has that 30 also has. So I notice they both have 1 factor of 2, so I'm going to highlight that. Now 24 has 2 more factors of 2, but 30 does not have any more factors of 2. So I'm just going to highlight the 1. And 24 has a factor of 3, and so does 30. So the factors they have in common are 1 factor of 2 and 1 factor of 3. So I'm going to put that in the intersection. 2 and 3. Now here I'm going to put the remaining factors of 24 that it does not share with 30. So there are 2 factors of 2 that 24 has that 30 does not. And there's 1 factor of 5 that 30 has but 24 does not. So now to find the greatest common factor, I multiply all their common prime factors, which are 2 times 3, which is 6. And to find the least common multiple, I'm going to multiply all of these factors. So 3 factors of 2, 1 factor of 3, and a factor of 5. So let's see, this is 8 times 5 is 40 times 3 is 120. So the greatest common factor of 24 and 30 is 6, and the least common multiple of 24 and 30 is 120. Okay, and notice 120 is somewhat large. Okay, you'd have to make 5 factors of 24, or 5 multiples, excuse me, before you'd get to 120. So the list method might be a little cumbersome for numbers like these, so it's good to have this method as well. Let's look at our last example, 15 and 14. So 15 is 3 times 5. Those are both prime. And 14 is 2 times 7, and 2 and 7 are both prime. So those are prime factorizations. Now I'm going to make the Venn diagram. So this is 14, and this is 15. So notice the first thing we want to do is write any factors, common factors that are in the intersection. Well, if I start with 15, 15 has a factor of 3, 14 doesn't. It has a factor of 5. 14 doesn't. So they don't have any common factors. So this intersection, we would say it's empty. There's nothing there. They don't have any factors in common. So the 3 and the 5, the factors of 15, would be in the green circle but not in the blue. And now the 2 and the 7 would be in the blue circle but not in the green. So there's nothing in here. So you may want to think, well, nothing is 0. But actually, when we think about common factors, if we were to make lists of these common factors, every 2 whole numbers have a common factor of 1. So we'll just put a 1 in there. Okay. So their greatest common factor is the product of the numbers in the intersection, which is just 1. Okay, so that's a nice fact to know. If 2 numbers do not have any prime common factors, then their greatest common factor is 1. And remember, 1 is not considered prime or composite. It's special enough that it's neither. Now, what's going to happen here with the least common multiple? So for the least common multiple, we said we multiply all of the numbers that we see. Numbers that are in the intersection, numbers that are not in the intersection for both of those numbers that were given. So we have 3 times 5. I could multiply by 1, but we know that will just give us the same answer, so I'm going to skip it. Times 2 times 7. And before we multiply this, I just want you to notice something. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 7 is 14. So when we find the least common multiple, in this case, it's just the product of the 2 numbers, 15 times 14. So 15 times 14 is 210. You can verify this by multiplying using our algorithm or check it on your calculator. So this is a nice fact, because if you have 2 numbers who don't share any common factors, their greatest common factor will be 1. So I shouldn't say they don't have any common prime factors. Their greatest common factor is 1, and their least common multiple is just the product of the numbers. So remember, you can always multiply 2 numbers and get a multiple. So for example, if I multiplied 24 and 30, that would be a multiple of 24, because it's 30 times 24, and it would be a multiple of 30, because it's 24 times 30. That number is somewhat large, 720, and we found the least common multiple is 120, which is smaller. So we like to work with smaller numbers when we can, but lots of times it will just be necessary to find a common multiple. You don't need to find the least one. But if you can see relatively easily, make sure you're certain though, that 2 numbers don't have any common factors besides 1, their least common multiple is just their product. So that's a nice fact to know.